real reason that all these women, young women, sex workers, E-Thots, whatever you want to call them, are upset and mad is not primarily that they have to pay their taxes in the face of the recent thought audit movement, which I believe is a very clever strategy, which I'll touch on a little bit more in a second. But the real reason why they're so mad about thought audit, rather than finance, is they're mad that they are no longer allowed to deny their own existence. You see, these women are engaged in an active process of self-denial. It is very taboo for a woman, still today even, and a lot of guys don't realize this, but, a lot of my female friends express this, and I think that it is the case, that it's very taboo for a woman, even in 2018, to be called a hoe, a whore, etc., fill in your favorite synonym. It is degrading to their public image, because women like to maintain a public image of purity. When they're called a whore or a hoe or whatever, that interferes with their own mirror image of themselves as a pure, innocent little girl. Especially among, millennials and Gen Z women. I mean, Gen Z is different because they're not really women yet, most of them. But especially among millennial women, there's still, a lot of them, even the ones that are, now in their early 30s, are trapped in this little girl self-image of themselves. Women before millennials, I don't want to put it all on millennials, there was this desire to maintain a public image of innocence. And we saw this with Christine Ford when she was appealing to the public and the court, basically. She was playing into this aesthetic of, I'm innocent, I'm small, I couldn't hurt a fly. And that's a huge part of female credibility and female power, that radical vulnerableness. And so when that vulnerability is challenged, that is a major blow to them. And when a woman is publicly perceived to be a whore, that is still, even in the face of feminism and Me Too and all of that, it's still damaging. So the real reason why they're so upset about this is because when they participate in this whoring themselves out, if we wanted to be satirical about it, they're empowered because they exist behind a mask. The mask of the internet allows them to get away with whoring themselves out without being publicly considered to be a whore. The reason why they don't want to pay their taxes is not first and foremost because they're greedy, although that probably is part of it too. They're lazy and greedy, want to make their income off of flashing their tits on Snapchat or whatever. But it's because if they were to report their taxes for whoring their bodies out, that would formally validate them as a whore, and it would interfere with their mirror image of themselves. Because this is being politicized as a public issue, it interferes with their mirror image. The mirror image, by the way, that develops in people is we have this perception of ourselves. It develops in early childhood. We look in the mirror. At first, when we see ourselves in the mirror, we're alienated from it. We see it as a foreign object. We don't understand that reflection is us. But as our brains develop and we develop abstract reasoning, we have the ability to recognize, hey, that person in the mirror is actually me. When I move my hand, that's actually me causing that. But self-denial is when people didn't or don't have the ability to recognize that the outward actions that they affect in the world are attributable to them. There's a discontinuity between their perception of themselves and their actualized self in the real world. And so what these women are so scarred by is the fact that, by calling them out, it challenges their secrecy. The IRS, I mean, it doesn't get any more formal than that. They're going to sing the song of toxic masculinity, misogyny. That's what you see most, with these Twitter posts is, oh, these are misogynist incels. That's the Snap 2 narrative. Whenever women or the left gets challenged, it's incels. If it's young men, incel. Whenever you see them do that, they are deeply challenged by whatever it is that you are doing. Whenever someone calls you an incel, you challenged power. You should wear that as a badge of honor. We have breached into avant-garde activism, and this is a new genre. So we should continue to call these women out, not only because, it's justice in the material sense of they're scamming people out of their money because they're lazy effectively, but the real reason we want to challenge them is because what it does is it calls out the discontinuity between their public image and who they perceive themselves to be in the real world. And if we can zoom in on that discontinuity, what we can do is we can show that they're in bad faith, they are not genuine. We should burrow our way in to highlighting this connection as something that's, hey, feminist politics, feminist sex politics plays into unnatural tendencies of women and tries to promote them whoring themselves out, which is discontinuous with their self-image. And the internet has provided these platforms and spaces for them to do that. I mean, if we wanted to get really technical about this, I don't care how high definition your camera is, all cameras create distortions of reality. Unless you're using a film camera, you are pixelating reality. You're turning reality into digits and ones and zeros, digits and code. They are literally objectifying themselves into digit and code to exploit the desires of men. A picture is just a still shot of reality. Even a video is just really a bunch of still shots of reality. There's a more complex formula when you take digital video, but it's a distortion of reality. That is not the real world. And so they see themselves as the ones on the internet, not the ones in real life. This is effectively the same thing they are accusing us of, hiding behind a screen, etc. But they are doing the same thing too. And so we should call them out on that, because this is a clear example of it. And women are distorting their own image, their own body image. It creates a distortion of who they are, what their value is, and what their body means, and turns it into something that is literally digits and code. And then, on top of that, their self-value, their psychological value, is based on the marketing of that false representation of themselves. So their entire self-worth is based on a false representation. That isn't just bad for men, it's bad for women, and it's bad for society. It is a bullshit form of sociological organization, and we should continue to draw attention to this.